Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. I got the wife here with me.
Hello.
And I am working the wife into the episodes where we're talking about political, societal matters, things of that nature, because I want you full time here. Mm-hmm. And they do as well.
Yeah,
I've seen many comments with people saying, why isn't she there all the time? And I wonder the same thing.
Because I work, guys.
I know, exactly. But slowly we're going to get into that. So today it's going to be Dave Smith, Joe Rogan, and they're talking about society, wokeism, and Barry Weiss. There's going to be a clip from her as well, and she's talking about how the world has gone mad. So we're basically talking about the upside downness that's taken place in the world, and how can we ever go back to normal? That's my big question of this episode. Let's get into the Joe Rogan clip first. Let's go right now. Hit it.
Yeah. Do you see what they're doing with soldiers? So, they fired a lot of soldiers who weren't with vaccine and inviting them back.
Yeah. Well, they're having a big recruitment issue in the military. Yeah.
Well, how many fucking videos do you have of some Navy sailor who is doing a TikTok and he turns into a woman and dances around? Where you're like, what? Aren't you in the Navy?
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't that shit be not what you're broadcasting? Like, this is like, what are you doing? You doing this for attention?
Yeah, you would.
Like, what's going on with the Navy?
You also would think, and I'm not inside the minds of everybody who joins the military, but I feel like that isn't what most of them get in it for. You know what I mean? Like, that would probably turn off a lot of these young brave boys who want to join the military to protect the Bill of Rights and defend our country and make sure your sister doesn't get attacked by a terrorist or something. And they're not really the wokest amongst us. And that might win you some points in Portland. But I don't think that most of the kids from rural Texas or Alabama who want to sign up to enlist in the military, they might be a little bit dissuaded by that culture.
I think you're going to turn them away. Oh, shit, the fucking military's gone woke too.
Yeah.
It's a Bud Light thing for the military.
Yeah.
The military went Bud Light.
But it is, look, dude, the COVID stuff and the woke stuff, it all does just it's like if you just try to step out of a little bit of it and just observe what's going on, it's kind of easy to just be like, oh, we're living through a moment of national insanity.
Yeah.
Let's hope this passes. But this is craziness that for almost anyone else of any other generation, it would be very easy to describe exactly what you're seeing right now. You'd be like, oh, this is insanity.
Well, it's the first time ever where propaganda has encountered new media.
Yeah.
It's the first time ever. So everything seems so insane. And if you're a person that's always gone 100% mainstream news, that's it. You have narratives in your head. I know a lot of older people, they have very specific CNN or Fox News narratives in their head.
Yeah, well, dude, this is really, to me, very revealed with Israel, with the war going on over there right now, where you see that there's this huge generational gap where it's the older generation is no, I know what I know about this is this, and I've always known that it's the story here is that Israel just wants to exist, and then these crazy barbaric Arabs just want to kill them, and that's it. But you see amongst the younger generation a lot more of an understanding of that's not the entire story. Now, I'm not saying they get everything right either, but they at least know that that's not the whole story.
Right.
But look,
because of people like you that just laid it out, and here's the best thing about it: too many people believe that their side is correct and there's a solution. If you really look at the whole thing, you go, boy, that is insanely complicated, and it's got such a history of horrific violence now. And
that is the clip, the Joe Rogan clip. We're going to move on to Barry Weiss in a second, but that's a national moment of insanity. I like the way he put that a lot.
I was surprised by the social media footage.
Oh, that guy?
Of the Navy person.
Oh, you've never seen that?
No.
Yeah. I've played not quite that, but I've played that guy before.
Yeah.
He is a recruiter.
What?
Yeah, he's not just in the Navy. He's the guy that recruits people.
Oh my God.
And for some reason, he goes and that's what his TikTok.
And does drag as well.
Yeah.
Interesting. wonder who he's recruiting.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, who are you trying to push it to? It's like when Bud Light went through their whole thing. Not the CEO, but the vice president of marketing, the young woman, and she's like, I'm just tired of the whole fratty, drinking beer type of people who, and she was trying to push it to somebody else, but it's like, but that's your whole market.
Yeah.
So it's like when he tries to do that, like Joe brings up that Bud Light moment, he's kind of doing the same thing. He's obviously pushing away, again, they brought it up perfectly, the rural area Texas person.
Yes. And I feel like that's their bread and butter of where they get people.
They need that.
Yeah.
They need that. 100% they need that.
And it's such a contrast too between that, and I always see videos on Instagram of like Marines recruiting, and then people doing like the pull-ups.
Yes. Yeah.
And like people do like crazy good pull-ups, and like that's the whole point of the video.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they have that in the first place at their recruiting is like, okay, like we're looking for like strong people.
Yes. Looking for strong young men. That's basically what they're looking
Yeah.
for. And if there's some girl that can all of a sudden do like 50 pull-ups, it's like, okay, we'll take you too.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's very interesting what's happening right now. This whole moment, right? It's been going on for a really long time. Not really long, but it's ramped up so much in the past 7 years.
Yeah.
I've watched it just ramp up and up and up. To the point where that guy who's a recruiter, who's doing drag, he doesn't even stand out all that much.
It's true.
As you see him on TikTok, he doesn't stand out all that much.
It's like he's not special or different anymore.
No.
The only thing different about him is he happens to also be in the Navy.
Yeah. The recruiter part is the thing.
Yeah.
It's
Weird.
funny. Tim Dillon was talking about people trying to rebel nowadays with woke culture going on, and they're like, the most rebellious thing people can do is like, become Christian. Like that's the rebellious thing to do now.
Yeah.
Because everything else, it's like if you see somebody with, he said it so perfectly. He's like, if you see someone with blue hair and like a nose ring, you're like, oh, are you running for Congress? It's like it just makes sense now. Let's play Barry Weiss. The World Has Gone Mad. This is a clip that Barry Weiss made when she was confronted by Brian Stelter. Brian Stelter is a very annoying man. You'll get to know him right now in this clip. You'll see his face. He's rather annoying. Let's play this.
You write, there are tens of millions of Americans who aren't on the hard left or the hard right who feel the world has gone mad. So in what ways has the world gone mad?
Well, when you have the chief reporter on the beat of COVID for the New York Times talking about how questioning or pursuing the question of the lab leak is racist, the world has gone mad. When you're not able to say out loud and in public that there are differences between men and women, the world has gone mad. When we're not allowed to acknowledge that rioting is rioting and it is bad, and that silence is not violence, but violence is violence, the world has gone mad. When we're not able to say that Hunter Biden's laptop is a story worth pursuing, the world has gone mad. When, in the name of progress, young school children, as young as kindergarten, are being separated in public schools because of their race, and that is called progress rather than segregation, the world has gone mad. There are dozens of examples that I could share with you and with your viewers.
And you often say,
everyone
aloud.
Sort of knows this, and
you say we're not allowed, we're not able.
between-
Who's the people stopping the conversation? Who are they?
people that work at networks, frankly, like the one I'm speaking on right now, who try and claim that, you know, it was racist to investigate the lab leak theory. It was.
But
I mean,
who
let's
said
just
that
take
at
an
CNN?
example.
But I'm just saying that when you say allowed, I just think it's a provocative thing you say. You say we're not allowed to talk about these things, but they're all over the internet. I can Google them. I can
Brian,
find them everywhere. I've heard about every story you
Of
mentioned.
course.
So I'm just suggesting, of course, people are allowed to cover whatever they want to cover.
But you and I both know, and it would be delusional to claim otherwise, that touching your finger to an increasing number of subjects that have been deemed third rail by the mainstream institutions and increasingly by some of the tech companies will lead to reputational damage, perhaps you losing your job, your children sometimes being demonized as well. And so what happens is a kind of internal self-censorship. This is something that I saw over and over again when I was at the New York Times.
Yep. I can definitely relate to that. I'm feeling that right now. I feel that every single time
Every time I come on here, I have to think so hard about what I say. It's ridiculous.
It's true. It's true. And you do. It's really weird. Yeah. The world's gone mad. I mean, even with what she's saying, as I was like going through those clips, some of you guys probably couldn't see them properly, but you know, sex isn't binary. You got to stop acting like it is. Like, I was playing a bunch of things that were kind of bringing to light exactly what she's saying. Like, there's articles about, you know, riots aren't irrational, and you know somebody's defending, you know, the destruction of property. And now we're at the point, and this was in 2020, but now we're at the point, if you are against looting, like Trump was talking about how people who like are looting and destroying property, they're going to be punished. And he's like, and you shouldn't expect like not to get shot if something like that happens, because if you're just rioting, you're breaking down, you're fighting employees, you're doing all this stuff. He's like, what else is supposed to happen to you if you're being this type of criminal, this type of wild person? What do you think's going to happen? And people right away, they were like, that's racist. Which is always wild to me as a black person, because I'm like, hey man, we're not the only people that riot and stuff. Like, there's some white people in there. It's not just a racist thing right away.
Yeah.
like
anybody who's claiming it's racist, that's more racist than what he said.
Yeah,
because he didn't single out any kind of specific race. Yeah,
exactly. It's getting pretty wild. And the big question that I was thinking as I was watching these clips is, how does everything go back to normal? Like, are we going to be able to go back to a place where a recruiter doesn't do that online? A recruiter doesn't do things like that. People are okay with law and order. People are, you know, maybe not in the highest respect in terms of law enforcement, but at least the police don't have their hands tied. Because in the question of the looting and the rioting, those people do that because they know if they just grab under $900 worth of stuff, they can't be prosecuted. Like you can go in and take $850 worth of stuff and just leave.
That's crazy.
And you could go and do it again the next day. And no one can do anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say to that.
And it's for anything you want, whether it's clothes or this or that. It's very interesting.
Remind me why they changed that law.
Yeah, that's a great question. Why?
I just don't understand. I haven't looked into that enough.
There's no real answer that will be like, oh, okay, that makes sense why they changed it. I guess
that's true.
They were just like, well, we just, you know, we don't. Oh, it was basically that they didn't want to clog up the legal system
because there's so many other bad things going on.
I don't know.
They should deal with that.
Yeah.
That sounds like a worse problem.
They didn't want to clog up the legal system because it's like, oh, you're going to have this guy in here and he's going to go to jail, and we'd rather just have him leave instead of having to deal with all that. We'll just have those people leave, those small offenders, quote unquote, and we can just deal with other stuff.
They should go to jail.
Instead of, well, of course.
Or at least, the very least, like if you don't have prison space for them, like a community service.
Yeah, something. Like maybe rebuilding a place that they demolished.
Yeah. Teach them a skill.
That would be
get
great.
them to work.
Yeah. That's
And if you have such issues in the prison, have those people go work in the prison.
Yeah, that would be something.
They probably wouldn't do it again.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? That was Trump's thing. He was like, if you do this, if you have this rash response to them, they'll stop doing it immediately.
Yeah.
It'll just stop. But, you know, every single person that's kind of dug into their side is just like, no, can't believe in anything Trump has to say, or anyone else for that matter, because Trump's not the only one saying that this should stop. There's many other people who haven't been demonized that are beginning to be demonized because they say things like this shouldn't be allowed to happen.
Even the guy on CNN responding to Barry Weiss, he was like denying everything she was saying.
Yeah, of course.
And you could tell she was even hesitant to say mainstream media and call out CNN for things because that's where she is.
That's where she is. And she resigned from the New York Times because of all this. It was like a big thing. And she's just, yeah, she didn't want to call it out. She still kind of has at that time, because she's becoming more independent. She was actually one of the reporters that was involved in the Twitter files. So she got to go through everything.
Oh, okay, that's how I know that name.
Yeah. She was one of the names. So she still had those roots. So she didn't really want to call out. But it's like, what else are you going to say?
Yeah.
And again, how do we go back to normal? Because like I was saying to you off camera, I'm like, there's some people that like this.
Yeah.
Like if you can just go and get $800 worth of stuff every day and sell it and make a profit of like $200 a day, whereas before your option was getting a job for minimum wage, you're like, this is fine. Who do I have to vote for this to continue?
Yeah.
I'll do it because this is
And I'm
great.
sure they're like justifying it too, like almost like a Robin Hood mentality.
Well, what do you mean, the people doing it?
Yeah.
The people doing it, I think there's probably some of that, because there was a woman, it was actually a funny situation. There was a woman who was in the midst of these looting and riots, and she was filming herself, which she shouldn't have done. Her name was Meatball. That was her name. And she was just screaming, everybody eats, everybody eats, everybody eats. So she was just like, we have to eat somehow.
Yeah.
And then AOC, I don't know her full name.
Yes, I know who she is.
Yeah. AOC. She was saying, well, listen, they do this because, maybe they need bread and they need bread for their family. So they take it. And then that's really what's going on here, is that they don't have bread for their family.
Yeah.
And food and stuff like that. And it's like, they're robbing Gucci stores though.
Yeah. Exactly.
They're going to Nike stores.
Because that's always my first thought as well, is that people shouldn't be prosecuted for taking food if they need food.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of a basic human right, and it's getting so crazy now.
Well,
or they should make community gardens and things like that so that people can be fed without having to steal.
Or food banks.
Yeah.
But like at that, when it comes to that part, it's like you have to at least get a job, and you have to exhaust every avenue.
Agreed.
Before they say we're not going to prosecute you for stealing food, because otherwise you should be prosecuted, because it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you doing that?
You're still hurting someone.
Like you can go and get a job. You can. It's just not fun.
Yeah.
Believe me, I know. I've worked terrible jobs.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
I don't think anybody thinks work is super fun.
No. Even the greatest jobs.
Yeah. Even when people say like, "Oh, I love my job," if you ask them, "Would you do it if you didn't get paid?" They would say no.
Yeah. Exactly. So, I don't know. Like, I think these people need to be prosecuted. Obviously. What's this?
You asked me to remind you about Dana White.
Oh, and Dana White. What was I going to say about Dana White? Oh, even he had this talking about everything going very oddly in the world. Dana White was talking about how he made a post about who he wanted to vote for, and one of the biggest sponsors for the UFC contacted him and said he has to take it down. And he's like, go F yourself.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to vote for who I want to vote for. You vote for who you want to vote for.
And he's a private citizen.
Yeah, exactly. And he was like, this is America. He's like, what are you trying to do right now? You can't tell me what to post and what my political leaning should look like to the public. Like, I'm just going to post whatever I want to post. And he was in an interview with Theo Von, and Theo Von experienced the same thing. And Dana White made him call out, who was it? He's like, who was it? And Theo Von's like, I don't remember. He's like,
you do.
He's like, I don't believe you. He's like, but it's okay. And then later on, Theo's like, it was Peloton. And he's like, Peloton. And he like pulled up the guy, and it was like some guy from San Francisco. He's like, you're letting this guy tell you what to do? And then on the podcast, he was like, he contacted his right-hand man. He's like, come in here. He's like, do we have any Pelotons in the UFC facilities? And the guy's like, yeah. He's like, all of them out.
Wow.
He's like, throw them all out. He's like, you could take one home if you want.
Wow.
He's like, I want them all out.
That's
I was
crazy.
like, whoa. The stock took a hit that day for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, he was just like, get them all out of here. But the only reason I wanted to bring that up is because the one thing he said, because we're talking about how things could go back to normal, he's like, this is going to keep happening unless people stand up.
Yeah.
And you don't have to stand up in the form of violence, but, Dana White didn't have to get violent. He said, this is somebody who does this type of thing. It's Peloton. I want all the Pelotons out. And that's it. And that's the way that he's going to stand up. He lost that big sponsor, and that's the way he's going to stand up there, Because that is the only way things go back to normal, I think. Because, again, so many people like the way this is.
Yeah.
You know? There are people who like being able to be like, if you're having a conversation with a man, there are women who like to be like, I'm just going to call this guy sexist right now.
Yeah. Sexist or misogynist or chauvinistic.
I'm going to do it.
And they can't even define those words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's black people who like I'm just gonna pull the race card.
Yeah.
There's so many people who just like that. They're into that type of world. So how do you pull that away from them and have things go back to normal? It's very hard. Like some people, you know, everybody in the I guess the woke side of things, they like being able to say your speech is violent to me. When you say that to me, it's like punching me in the face. They like to be able to do that because they didn't actually get punched in the face and they're just having a discussion. But when I can take your words and tell you that they're violent, I'm kind of like disabling you. I'm making it so you can't say those words anymore because I'm telling you it's violent. And there's people that like that. So I don't know how it all go back to normal.
Well, there never is any going back.
Yeah, I guess.
So
yeah.
there's no back to normal.
Yeah.
It's how do we structure the future to be what it should be and show our values.
Yeah. It's very interesting to think about because I don't know how that's going to work.
No.
Especially when a lot of these kids are being pumped out of these schools and such by the thousands every year.
I wish they would just, I don't know, like teach a course on how not to be offended by things.
Yeah, that would be something. That school would get protested.
Oh, for sure. Like I pretty much am never offended by things. Like, I just don't care.
That's right.
Like it's not personal. Somebody's going to say something that's their choice to say that thing.
Yeah.
And I don't have to choose to be offended by it.
I'm like that as well. I'm like that as well when it comes to because I notice people will try and do this sometimes when it comes to race. And they'll be like, what about if a black person did that? And I'll be like, I don't care. I'm not even from the black community. Why are you telling me that? I'm like, I don't care about that. I come from a Jewish community.
Yeah.
They'll be like, and I'll say I'm joking, but I know what you're doing. And it's like, that's not going to excite me. You're not going to excite me that way.
They're just trying to get a rise out of you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, I don't know how I think of, I always think of a little aggressively. I always think of like break off civilizations. Because how else? I don't know. There's going to be certain people who think words are violence. They're going to think the way a regular man, and I said regular man, thinks is sexist, misogynistic, offensive, violent, whatever. How are we going to work around all this offendedness in the future? You know? Because I know the way I do it now, I'm not around anybody like that. So I'm like an island in that sense. I'm a moving island where I just move around those people.
Yeah.
But how do you do that for a whole society?
But we're still navigating waters in which that could be an issue if you run into the wrong thing or you say the wrong thing.
Yeah, with the wrong
So
person.
even if you're not around those people intentionally.
Oh, yeah. With like online stuff.
Yeah.
You
can't.
Yeah.
When you're online because it goes everywhere. You can't choose to distance yourself from that.
That's true. And it's funny because, you know, you could always bring up, alternatives in terms of online. But even then, it's very difficult. You're right. I don't know.
Yeah. The only thing we can do is just make a choice in terms of where we spend our money and where we put our attention. Because all of those like Navy things, we're saying they're having recruitment issues.
Yeah.
So if that continues, they're going to try and change their tact.
They're going to have to.
Exactly.
Like Bud Light did.
Yeah.
Bud Light went to the UFC.
They were forced to change.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to continue that way and make small changes and show what each individual wants. And as a collective, hopefully move in a direction that's healthier.
Yeah. That is true. You know, and then when you think of like the individual getting upset by something, you know, like I always think of the best example I have is when someone's at a comedy show and everyone's laughing and then the one person's like, boo, boo, no, it's not good. I don't like it. You shouldn't have done it. The only way that person gets disabled or silent, I don't know how else to put it, is that everybody just kind of ignores them and the comic just keeps going. Maybe he tears them down, maybe he gets at them a little bit, but everybody just keeps going. And I guess you got to kind of do that in society.
Yeah.
You know?
Just keep going.
Yeah. Like if right now there was like 100 people that were like upset in the comments from this video, I'd just be like, well, I'm not going to read any of those. And we're just going to keep going.
Sometimes I read the comments, like any negative ones, and I just laugh out loud. So I think it's funny.
I'm starting to learn from Joe Rogan. I'm following a path very similar to Joe Rogan, because if you go to Joe Rogan's Twitter, if you go back, like way back, because you can go back, he doesn't delete anything. If you go way back, he is just laying into people. Like he had time back then. He wasn't the biggest thing in the world, and he was just like, how about this? He would just get into arguments with people.
That's so funny.
And tear them down like crazily.
I don't think that's necessary either.
Yeah. Yeah.
I generally go for the ignore tactic.
It doesn't feel good. That's when he realized that it doesn't feel good to have to do that.
No.
And then he got to the point where it didn't feel good to even like engage in that and like read it at all. And that's where he is now with it.
Yeah, he just doesn't read anything, right?
Yeah. Which I find, I'm like, but there's so many nice people in the comments.
You just have to make sure that you're weighting the nice ones higher than the negative ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, the world is crazy.
Yeah. So I guess there's no going back. I guess you're right. I guess that is what makes the most sense. There is no going back. It's only forward. And I guess hopefully these things will wear out, all of these weird ideologies that are popping up.
Yeah.
But then again, if you put on that tinfoil attire, it's like all of these ideologies are popping up for a reason, and they're pushing society in a certain way because they're trying to get them into a certain mindset. There's somebody, in the spirit of what we're talking about, I can't even mention their name, but there's someone who once said that tolerance, actually, like if you have tolerance for everything, you have boundaries for nothing. And that's actually like a bad place to be in as a person. You're supposed to have boundaries. So there's some things that are supposed to be intolerable to you. And all they teach nowadays with all this stuff is to be tolerant of everything.
True.
And that can go very badly for a person and a society, for that matter.
Yeah.
I mean, Sam Smith dresses like Satan and covers himself in fake blood.
Yeah, very weird.
Like, and we're all supposed to just be like, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's
art.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. It's getting wild.
Yeah.
But are you going to come with me to the forest?
Yeah, we'll go wherever.
In the forest.
Follow you anywhere.
Okay, good. Yeah, we're going to go to the forest and we're going to cut up cows. I'll cut them up.
Oof. You clean them, I'll cook the meat.
I'll cut them up and I'll get the water in the jugs.
I was telling you the other day, I could definitely kill a chicken. I don't think I can kill a cow.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. Too big, too cute.
Nah.
They're like grass dogs.
It's all, yeah, I guess so. Chickens are cute too, though.
I don't know. They're look like a little dinosaur.
They're like farm cats.
No.
Because they'll come up to you when they're
more
real
like
nice.
fish.
They're not fish.
They
They're like
remind me of
cats.
fish.
They'll come up to you and they'll rub you.
I don't know.
They'll rub their heads on you.
But so will fish.
No. Fish are trying to... Fish will... They're lizards, basically, right?
So are chickens.
No, chickens, they...
Chicken is the closest living ancestor to a dinosaur. Or, no, closest living relation to a dinosaur.
But they'll like you.
Chickens?
Like, you can name them and they'll like you and they'll come to you.
I don't know.
And you won't even have to have food.
I want one named Hennifer.
Say say that about a cat, right? You know? You need something with a cat, usually. At least love. I don't know. Anyway, thank you for coming on this episode.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to do more like this. And to the person in the comments who was like, are you thinking about having guests on? Yes, I absolutely would love to have a guest on most episodes, actually, and get more opinions and talk to people. I definitely want to get into that. We do have that special person that's coming on.
Yep.
Very soon.
Very exciting.
I don't even want to jinx it because
last
time I said it and then he had to reschedule and then he rescheduled and now now
it's gonna be a surprise.
We have a set date. Yeah. Okay. Let's just make it a surprise. Anyways, guys, like the episode, subscribe, and other than that, we are out.
Bye.